Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. On the panel with me today is Ms. Linda Schultz and Mr. Richard Whitbread. Our assessor is Mr. Matthew Harling, and our administrative person is Ms. Twinkle Sharma. My name is Bill Moretsky. I am also sitting on the panel and will be chairing this hearing. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We'll then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 to 3 on our docket today. Ms. Sharma, please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony.
Sure. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Matthew Harling.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to provide at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Rocky Neufeld.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to provide at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, our first property on the docket today is item 12477 Day Street. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Harling, could you please begin your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As indicated, the file number is 24-3493. The roll number is 0900486750. The address is 2477 Day Street, and the owner is Markwell Industries 1979 Limited. The 2025 roll year, based on a reference date of April 1st, 2023, is an assessed value of $2,113,000. If you look below in my brief, under the prop description on page 1, you'll see there's a one-story building. The actual year builds range from 1940 to 1991, which is the same for the effective year builds. And we're using an overall effective year build of 1967. The wall heights range from 11 to 22 feet. The construction class is masonry bearing walls, and it is zoned for M2 manufacturing general. The land area is 249,169 square feet, with a plan area of 19,607, which then gives us a land to plan area of 12.71. And then we have a total leasable area of 19,635. Okay, we turn to page 2 of my brief. You'll see the request for income information has been received. There are no recent sales on the property, and there are no leases in place. Turning to page 3 of my brief, turning to where the subject's located. So as indicated, this is on Day Street. So you can see at the top here, just a Google Street View image. This is, or a Google Map view. So this is just in the Transcona area of the city. You can see North Transcona. This would just be east of the, east is the east perimeter. You can see here, there's Gun Road as well. So this is where the subject's located. Bottom of page 3, this is just a aerial view, just to show where the subject's located. You can see where the little red dot is, indicating where it's situated. Okay, now if we turn to page 4 of my brief, we'll see at the top here, the first picture, there's a parcel outlined of the subject. So just the rectangular parcel, and you can see here the building on the site. Looking at the bottom of page 4, you'll just see a more zoomed up image to show the subject property in its entirety. If we turn to page 5 of my brief, you'll see some further photos of the subject. So this is facing Day Street. Just to give some context, maybe just because this might be a question that might be asked. The building in the back of the property, this one, you can see it's essentially like this metal larger shed here. We're not assessing that, that's not being assessed. It's just to let the board know. It's just the main building that's like the L-shaped property. So that's just the property we're assessing here, just to give some context. If you look at the bottom, also on page 5, you can see the further photos, just a rear picture of the subject from the back. If you look at page 6 of my brief, as I indicated, this is the main building we're assessing here, just the main building. Again, you might see in the very corner this little tiny house here. That's also not being assessed. So it's just, again, just the main U-shaped or L-shaped building here is what we're assessing. So page 7, this is just another photo of the subject property. Page 8 is just some further photos just from the east and west side of the building or the property. So you can just get a picture of the subject in its entirety. And then lastly here on page 9, this is just a rear view photo of the subject, just more closer in, so you can get an idea of the building. And then lastly on page 10 of my brief, you can just see a street view photo of the front of the subject property here at the top of page 10 and the bottom. Okay, so we turn to page 11 of my brief to see the income workup. So as indicated, we're using a total lease layer of 19,635 square feet. We're using a model rent at $7.16 a square foot, which then gives us a potential rent of $140,587, relying 1.5% for vacancy, which then gives us an effective gross income of $138,478. Lastly, we're applying expenses of 3%, as well as $4 a square foot for shortfall, which then gives us a net operating income of $133,146. And then lastly, we're applying an overall capitalization rate of 6.30%, which then gives us an estimated value of $2,113,000. Okay, if we turn to page 12 of my brief, you can see some of my rent comparables here. So my first rent comparable here is on Cordite Road. This is being close to the subject property, 1395 Niagara Road, 1000 Alexander Avenue, 2475 Day Street, and then 330 Debate Street. So these lease start dates range from November 2019 to February 2023. Lease terms range from 3 to 10 years. Leasable areas range from 12,000 square feet to 31,987 square feet. The wall heights range from 14 feet to 26 feet. Effective year built range from 1978 to 1981. And the rents in place range from $7.25 a square foot to $9.50 a square foot. So those are my rent comparables. Turn to page 13 of my brief under the cap rate information. If you're looking at the city's cap rate information under industrials, we applied a 6.3% cap. So that does fall within the cap rates indicated by the outside, with the 28% of our properties we apply cap rates to. And then I believe there would be some further support looking at the outside sources. Turn to page 14 of my brief, just some municipal assessment information. Now if we turn to page 15 of my brief, this is the income expense measure that's provided. So predominantly the property is owner occupied. There is some space that is being leased, smaller portions you can see here that's being leased out. So, but it's primarily used by Markwell Industries, so it's owner occupied space. This continues on page 16. On page 17, you can just see the actual the tenant here that's being used in the space here, this PFB Corp, which are Plastifabs, is what the name of the company is. If we turn to page 18, this is the last photo or last picture of the income expense mailer. And now page 19 here, this is actually a floor plan that we have to find on file or a site plan. So this just goes to show shows the main building and all the different sections. So so you can kind of get an idea of the building. The space where it says warehouse lease, that's the space that's being leased out by the tenant, where it's marked out with the red dots in the top left hand right hand corner. But yeah, so this is the pictures of the building, or a good floor plan. So, and then lastly, my brief, page 20. This is just some outside source vacancy reports to support our vacancy rate. And yes, so that being said, I believe that concludes my presentation, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, do you have any questions on the assessor's presentation?
Yes, I do. Just one, sorry, I was just repositioning my my screen. Have you had an opportunity to inspect this property?
You know what? I've actually been on the property prior, a few years ago, like doing the exterior inspection to check the building in the back, and I have not physically been in the main building. So.
Okay, so you didn't accompany me when I can't remember which assessor we brought to the site, and we went through the buildings. That wasn't you, and I apologize. It's my memory we're testing, not you.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, yeah, I'm not sure who it was, unfortunately, yeah. So, but it wasn't me. No, yeah, it definitely wasn't me.
And are you able to point out which section is the unheated section?
No, the only, from what I was able to find, like actually, if you look at my page 19 in my brief, the floor plan, the only space I can see that would have unheated space is like they indicate there's a cold storage space at the top left-hand corner. That's the only information I'm aware of.
Okay, so sorry, page
19 in my brief.
Right. Okay. Oh, okay. And this came from, okay. Oh, thanks. Now, in your workup, is that considered leasable space?
Cold storage?
The total you have listed here of the.
Oh yeah, the total area we have there, we are classifying as leasable area, correct? Yes.
Okay. All right. So you haven't broken that out, and sorry, I back up here. Page 11. This is done by the model.
This is a model drive, correct?
And the vacancy at 1.5%, that is your model in what you call District 2, is that correct?
That would be District 2, correct, yeah.
And that extends from the South Perimeter Highway to the North Perimeter Highway? Large area?
Yeah, that particular market region would be that, yeah.
Now, though this particular area of Transcona, does it have a name?
I guess this would be considered the, yeah, I know what there is a name, yes, but I can't remember it.
Something like North Transcona, or
yeah, that would be a good
field, something like that. Okay,
correct. Yeah, that would be a good indication. Yeah.
So you don't have a specific breakdown for this neighborhood, do you?
No, I do not have a particular breakdown other than Transcona.
And I'm wondering if you had, sorry, I'm just looking at your overhead pictures, one that's a bit broader, showing the neighborhood.
Page 3 might be the best.
Okay. And I'm working on memory as well, because okay, there it is. Now, what is that is a rail line at the south of the property, right?
Yeah, further down there, yeah, there's the rail line there, yeah.
And on north of the property across Gun Road, that would be the RM of Springfield, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And the neighborhood to the west is a residential subdivision, a newer one, correct?
Yeah, that would be correct. Canterbury Park, yeah.
And to the east is more of this Transcona industrial. Are you and I'm my understanding is that there is no servicing north of that rail line within the city of Winnipeg. Except for the new subdivision. Were you able to look into that?
You know what? I did not, unfortunately, did not dig into that, I guess, or look into that now.
Okay. Markwell Industries, do you know what they do, what their business is?
Yes, they do. No, I actually did look into it. So they're essentially like fabricators, steel, welding, things like that. So,
yeah, okay, that's what I was asking. Don't have a lot to ask you here. I just want to make sure we got our backgrounds correct on this. comparables you brought forward, 2475 day. Do you know what that is?
Yes, that's also they also do steel manufacturing there as well.
That's a recycle facility, isn't it?
Are we talking about the one at Var Steel, the property?
Oh, I'm sorry, Varsteel. Yes. Okay, no, my mistake.
No problem.
Sorry, we had seen this one on the appeal last year, and do you actually have the income and expense forms on this? Our information was that this was owner occupied.
I mean, I don't have the information in my brief here. As far as the information I was able to find, it wasn't owner occupied from our position. So.
Okay. And the balance of these locations are not in the Transcona area, are they?
No, correct. Yes, some of them would be further, like St. Boniface Industrial, and yeah, Nyack would be further. Yeah.
And is it assumed that all of these have services extended to the site?
As far to my knowledge, yes.
Okay. One sec. I didn't have much more. When an assessor comes out to the site, and it's going to be the same question I'm going to ask you for the other two properties, and they note certain condition issues, do these become permanent on your system, or do we have to go back every 2 years and reiterate them? I'm just wondering, because I thought we had dealt with this property on condition 5 years ago.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a note. Like I said, I'm not sure the assessor who inspected the building or when it was. Like I said, I do remember doing an exterior inspection of this property back in 2017 because we were initially adding that building in the back, but we removed that. But that's the only portion I inspected I remember doing. I didn't inspect the interior.
Well, you had mentioned that certain buildings are no longer on the roll. Do you know when they were taken off the roll?
Well, I'd have to do some digging, but it's been at least a few years. I can get an exact number later if you'd like. I just don't have time.
No, I was just wondering if you were aware that it was the result of an inspection on the premises with an assessor.
Yeah, like I said, I can only speak to the one in the back. Like I said, I did inspect the back. The one actually, I know you. Actually, as a matter of fact, I know you weren't there, Mr. Greenfield, but I think it was actually with Ayrton and Bram were there. Actually, I remember.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know what? I was there with another assessor, and then and then I guess you went again for a second time.
Yeah, it must have been just for the back. Yeah, so that's all I can remember, fortunately. Yeah, so but.
In general, is this a modern industrial facility?
It's a bit older, yeah, 1967. I'm mindful that's not a brand new building or anything like that. No.
Oh, no. Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Ms. Schultz, any questions for the assessor?
Yes, just one question. So if I go to the income and expense mailer you have that was received, you've got rental income of $94,644 and leasable area of $7,184. So the total leasable area that we're assessing is 19,635. Do you have information on the remainder of the square feet?
Yeah, like as I indicated, like that would be owner occupied, so that would be the rest of that remaining space is used by the owner. So
do we have any information on what that is? For income expense mailer?
Well, no,
or am I missing it?
Yeah, well, they're just showing because they're just leasing out that 7,184 square feet. So that's just what they're leasing out to them. So there's the remainder there. So yeah, so I guess the balance would be the owners. So like.
And we have no information on that from them. Okay.
No, yeah, because there'd be I guess, yeah.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
Yes, I'm on page 5 of your brief. The photographed on the right-hand side.
Yes.
So you indicated the house and that rear building were no longer on the roll.
Correct.
Can you tell us why they were removed from the roll?
Well, for example, the shed in the back, I believe some photos in Mr. Neufield's brief, but it's essentially it's not leasable space. It's not really usable. It's like purely storage, and it is the condition is very poor. So you know, it really doesn't add, we don't believe it adds value to the property, so henceforth why we removed it, so.
Okay, and you can do that, then you decide that the value is 0. And would you do that with the applicant, or was that a decision made by the taxation department?
No, like I said, I believe it was, like I said, it's been a number of years since that this occurred, but yeah, we were, like an inspection, I believe, was requested. We looked into it and then indicated, yeah, this space, yeah, yeah, it wasn't part of an appeal. This was something I think done before, prior to an appeal, yeah.
Okay, so let's roll back up then to page 4 of your photographs.
Okay.
You've got the one on the bottom of the page with the red outline around it.
Correct, yes.
So essentially what you're telling us is that a very good portion of this space is not being used then. There's no value to it from a market perspective. And I'm wondering, was any consideration given to an excess or surplus land value attached to this property?
You know what, yeah, I'm mindful of the fact it does have a, you know, if you look at the land plan area, it is quite large. You know, we didn't put any additional land value on it. Obviously they do have a lot more room to expand if they, or to, you know, add additional space, or, you know, buildings or space if they wanted to, but no, we didn't include any surplus land in this case.
Okay, can you say why?
You know what, like I said, you know, I don't have an exact reasoning. In honesty, when I first looked at this, I kind of thought, I looked into myself saying, is there why maybe we wouldn't have? You know, I don't know like, you know, I don't want to make speculation, so I don't have exact answer. Apologies,
No,
yes.
I prefer you not. So from a, I don't know what the right word is. Let's just say from a philosophical perspective or from a strategic perspective, having that extra space to expand and develop would make this a more attractive property to an investor, would it not?
You know, potentially. I mean, I'm not saying for sure. I mean, mine, like obviously, you know, they're storing a lot of stuff back there too. So, but it's, yeah, I guess it's possible. Yeah, like I can't say for certain, but yeah. So
Sure, but as an investor, I look at that and I say, there's no value to that. Let's put a bulldozer in there and remove it all. I've got like maybe 4 acres of space there that is quite attractive on Day Street. Is
yeah,
that
I mean,
not
yeah,
correct?
yeah, definitely. If you're right, if you start from scratch, let's say even, yeah, you would have a good amount of, definitely a good amount of land to develop. Yeah. So
Sure. So then let's move to your cap rate and understand this. This seems at the high end of the spectrum. Can you explain why this is a 1940 building? To me, I know you said 1967, but the roots of it are 1940, correct?
correct. Yeah. When it was first built, there were some additions added over time. So yeah.
Yes, yes. And I'm sorry, did you say you were in the building at one point?
Not the, unfortunately, I wasn't in the main building. I expected the one in the back, the one that we removed. Like I did an
Okay.
exterior inspection, so I removed the one in the back. Unfortunately, we didn't, honestly, I don't know why I didn't inspect the main building, that there was some reasons
Okay.
behind for whatever reason, you know.
Okay. Yeah, so it's impossible for you to comment on the condition inside. So having a 1940 based, 1967 effective based, that puts us into what, about the 55 year of age. That seems like a high cap rate to me. Is that, can you comment on that?
I mean, like you said, the cap rate, like, I mean, it all comes down to a lot of factors like age, condition, location, wall height, all those factors. Like I said, I can't speak to the condition, unfortunately, because I've not physically been in it. So, you know, it's hard to say. Like I said, when we look at our cap rates, it's not just based on one attribute. So, yeah, like, you know, unfortunately, I don't think I have the, fortunately, I don't have the probably the exact answer you're looking for. So, but you know, it's not a new building. I'm mindful of the fact it is older. Like I said, it is being used for steel fabrication, stuff like that. So I'm not saying it's a, you know, high quality building or anything like that. So, but we, you know, I think a little bit of a higher cap rate. I think the cap rate we applied is not unreasonable, just based on some.
You didn't make any adjustments to that cap rate?
I didn't make it. No, it's all model derived. So yeah.
Okay. 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 I'm going to leave it there, Mr. Chair. Thanks. No further question.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
You mentioned in your, well, you mentioned a few times in your presentation and the questioning that the effective age is 1967, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So your page 1 says effective year built 1940 to 1991.
Correct.
So, but it's 1967.
Yeah, 67 was what we're using as the overall effective year build, taking into account like the newer space as well as the older space. So kind of coming up with like an average, you know, weighted average, if you will, in a sense almost. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to a question that Ms. Schultz asked earlier of lease space here. 7184 is the leasable area, and the rent roll also has that figure for the Plastifab of 7184 at 7887. You mentioned on page 19 that area that's outlined with the red dot line is the area that Plastifab is leasing out, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So if I look at that area, I got 60 and I got 60 up the other side. That's 3,600. That jut out is about 300. So we're looking at 3,900. That's, you know, a little over half of the 7184. So I'm just wondering where the other area is that they're renting.
Well, you know what? I mean, it's hard to tell for certain, but because when I took this picture, it was cut off. Unfortunately, that what spot. I don't know why it was, but if you look at the top there, the dimensions, it does say 120 feet, and I think the whole area from that top portioning to the very back, I think that's 120 feet there. I think by 60, I guess. So I think maybe that's how it was come up with, because that would be if we did 120 by 60. That would be what.
So the red dot should go across to the
yeah. It doesn't like
the other wall.
Yeah,
Then,
it's just yeah. I apologize. It's just like it was like when I found this, it was just missing that portion. I'm not sure why. So, but yeah.
So there's actually no demising wall between what they're renting and what the owner has in that area, according to this plan, anyways.
Well, it says here, like, you know, it's interesting that I know it says here there's a door here that says permanently closed. So I don't know if you can get access to there or not, or if the only entrance. Because, like I said, unfortunately, Mr. Newfield might have some better information than me in that case. But
yeah, but you said that area, the main part of the aisle, part of it is rented out by Plastifab.
Correct,
so
yeah.
how do they separate it?
Yeah, like I said, I think, well, yeah, I believe there's a wall there. So, like, I mean, I like I said, unfortunately, I can't say for certain. Unfortunately,
Well, there is no wall there. That's what it's not shown on the plan.
like, which part are you talking about? The very top, I guess, or?
Okay. So the red line, the red dotted line, you said was Plastifabs, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, but now you're saying that it goes 120 feet across.
Okay, so which are you looking at, the one at the very bottom of the page or the very top? Sorry, I guess, or
At the top of the page.
Oh, yeah.
That's where it is, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, correct, yeah.
Okay. And then you said, well, it goes 120 across right to the other wall, to the left wall. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's correct, yes.
Okay, so but there's no wall shown there.
Well, yeah, like I said, I think that might be just an image issue. Maybe like it was just not being shown, I guess, whatever. Like I said, when I was taking the picture, it just didn't have it in there. So I don't know why it's not showing. But like, I mean, if you look at the actual picture of the building, like it's there. So. Or I'm sorry. I mean, I apologize. Maybe
I'm not following you. What the picture? What picture shows that wall?
Like
you don't have one inside.
Yeah, I apologize. I guess I'm just maybe. I'm not sure what maybe we can look at like a page, for example, page 7, I guess, let's say, for example, like, which is like the actual exterior, the outside picture of the building. Like maybe, like, I'm you know, I'm not going to say, you know, I guess I'm a little confused. I'm just not sure.
Okay, yeah, let's look at that picture then on page 7. Okay, if we look at the smaller part of the L-shaped building, and the south wall. So you're saying that south wall goes right through to the other side, correct?
Correct.
That's what you said. Okay, but that's not shown anywhere, correct?
Okay, yes, correct, yeah.
Okay. And I have no further questions then?
Mr. Chair, I do have one more.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Mr. Harling, do you know if the property is contaminated?
As far as to my knowledge, I don't believe it is, but again, typically I'll look on the contaminated website. I couldn't find anything to indicate that there's.
Okay, that's fine. If you don't know, that's fine. Thank you. No further questions.
Hey, Mr. Neufeld, would
Sorry,
you,
yeah, just a follow-up question. Just when you were at the site, um, do you remember, sorry, what date was that? You said 20,
When I believe that was like, I could, let me see if I can find out. Give me apologize, 2 seconds here. I was there. Looks like 2018, I believe I was there.
okay. Had they removed all big chunks of steel on the side about that time? Was it cleaned up like your pictures showed?
You know what? I apologize. I can't recall, unfortunately.
Okay. No, I was just looking at the pictures, and I remember when I was out there, they had these giant pieces of cast steel that they were waiting to break down and cut, and I don't see them in the pictures. So
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and I just, if you recall that, it appears that like your shots mostly come from about 2022. Okay, and in those shots that you did provide, um, are those vehicles parked? Uh, are they abandoned or are they being driven? Do you know?
Yeah, those cars, from my understanding, are they're just kind of scrap, if you will.
Okay, good. Thanks. Sorry, I was a little off base on the redirect. Those are probably new questions. Sorry. That's it.
okay, can you begin your main presentation then?
Yes, thank you. So there are let's see, where do I start? We first became aware of the problems when I think it was around the time Mr. Harling mentioned it, is that there was an error on the roll. And there were several errors on the roll. There was a measurement issue in the main building, and then there was the idea of whether the shack at the back and the old house were accessible. And we ended up going out there with, I went out first with another assessor, and then I guess we had a follow-up for measurements that Mr. Harling may have been involved with. And together with the supervisor at the time, I think it was Mr. Pajak, we were able to remove those two buildings from the roll based on inspection and provide a new measurement for the accessible area. And this was something that we agreed to. That's and it's comprised of only that L-shaped building with the office portion on it. And referring to the assessor's pictures, which again are always much better than mine, bottom of page 8, this is the only building that's still being assessed, and it's comprised of, on the right side is the tenant space. This is a newer constructed portion, and it actually extends into the old building, which the old building is the long, narrow one on the top of the picture, which would be on the south side of the property. This has a craneway in it, which is only on the high portion, and then support areas on the side. And that is the owner's space, and it's no longer in use, and it's only the tenanted space that is being fully utilized now. The other section is the office portion, which is the part that sticks out on the north side of the long building, but it also, I think the best picture is on assessor page 6. The office is that one-story section that's on the ground that protrudes from the main, but then it goes into the longer building and goes to a second level. Now, at the time of every inspection, that space was empty. It's vintage 19. I'm trying to remember the name of the age of that section. I would pin it into the late 50s. So it's vintage space, has been empty for decades, and they don't use it. What the site was used for is the tenant has his space, and then the owner is a metal recycler, and what they recycle are very large pieces of metal, And give you an idea of what that is we have some pictures on beginning page 4. Now these are the shed that is not assessed, and I guess the person who made this up had no idea what these were, and they put them in, but they're just to demonstrate the sort of work they do on the buildings. And page 6 of our report kind of gives you an idea. These are old large machinery pieces, obsolete equipment, that they end up chopping, cutting, and sending off to foundries to be melted. Page 7 shows you some of the stuff they work on, and you can see that it's not just cast steel, it's also the assemblies in them. So at the time of our first inspection, the larger pieces, which were from hydro generating plants, were in their yard awaiting cutting to send off to a foundry. The bottom of page 7 shows the Markwell site with the craneway. And as I said, the use is very, very sporadic. It's contract to contract and hardly used. The space on the okay, now the house is still in use, but it is only in use, and I could tell you this isn't hearsay. I had to go to the bathroom and I had to use the house. It's the only thing hooked up to the septic system. And that's why it's still on the site. So they maintain the heat in there to use for their bathroom facilities for everybody. There's no water going to the rest of the shop, unless there's a pump outlet for use in their manufacturing. I didn't remember seeing any, but that's quite possible. Now, the idea of the septic, and this just based on my knowledge of the neighborhood, is that the city services never extended north of the rail line that runs. And that rail line goes down and encompasses a street called Valdy, as well as the space between Gun Road, which is in Springfield, and the rail line, which is in Winnipeg at that point. The land immediately west of it is called the Transcona Bioreserve. It's an ecological site that, of course, cannot be developed, and they obviously want to remain clean. Whereas the industry that surrounds this on the east and the north are heavy industry, and mostly it's scrap metal territory. What this is, that was actually the word I was trying to get out of Mr. Harling, was it's called the scrap metal district, because this is what they do out there. Page 8 just answers the question on environmental issues. There is no registry on this property, but the mere presence of a tank indicates that phase 1s and phase 2s will be required, plus the location. It's a foregone conclusion. And I'm not telling you I'm an expert in environmental identification and measurement, but I am an expert in knowing how the system works. And the system works, if you have a tank, you do get phase 1 and phase 2, and you're deemed to be require an environmental reviews. Given what they do on the site, that should come as a surprise to no one, because not only are they cutting the steel apart, they're cutting metals that have been deemed environmentally hazardous. They have lead. They work with lead because the old transformers that they haul in have a ton of lead in them. So there is no registration, but from a perspective of how this world works, that's what will happen. The rent that we put on it, getting to the valuation, was there are broken down into to 2 sections. Mr. Harling did point out the unheated area, part of it on the sketch. I was looking for our sketches, but I measured this myself in the building, that there is 2,740 square feet of unheated space in this remnant building. And where it is situated is on, we'll call them the wings of the craneway and the rear, virtually the entire south side of the craneway wing and the rear portion Mr. Harling identified are not heated. And the rest of the space, no question that the tenant space is superior and is, we'll call it normal. If you note the income and expense form and you work out the math, you can see that their net rent is approximately $650 a square foot. The rest of the space is of poor quality and poor configuration, no services, likely, and then the office is vacant and it's space. The heat's still turned on, but it's far from being occupiable. What we looked at was sort of a blended rate. The rest of the space is probably $4 to $5, requires work to get it up to any sort of grade. And that's how we came with the blended rate of $550 a square foot with the unheated space at $1.75. The rents that we used, that we looked at, they're in here somewhere. Starting page 9. These are evidence ones that we're presenting to the board this year. The primary criteria for their inclusion is they have to be clean. No tenant inducements, no tenant forwarding of money to write off into the lease. These are clean deals, and we are trying to present the actual real estate transaction, not a rent that's been impacted by supplying any sort of a kickback. No, that's the wrong word. It's a normal practice, any sort of payment to the tenant. Now, we did manage to find an unheated space, and I know Mr. Harling and I had a conversation on this. We don't have to talk about it because it's off the record, but we did have, I think this space is a perfect match for it, which is on page 9. It's larger. It's unheated space. I worked it out at $1.75 a square foot net. It's a gross lease. It's high space and it's got a great load bearing capability and a better location, bigger, more useful area. But we actually have found one after all these years, and I'm not kidding. 20 years to find unheated rental space in Winnipeg, because it doesn't usually get rented. It's always an owner occupied space, but there is one valid one in there, and that's what we were looking at for that. Overall, that comes to the numbers you have shown. As for vacancy, there is no such thing as a vacancy rate that is going to be just solely derived by a set of borders imposed by a third party. It has to be within a working region. Now, Transcona, North Transcona, or this recycling district, scrap metal district, it does not have any sort of a vacancy calculation, because almost all of the sites are owner occupied, and 70% of them are in the RM of Springfield, and vacancy doesn't care about civic boundaries. So there is nothing to consider there. Transcona, the other parts of Transcona, the ones on the south near the yards, again, smaller, owner occupied. St. Boniface Industrial has a greater database, which is in the assessor's database, and some are in, there are more investment ones in St. Boniface Industrial, very few in the older Mission Industrial. The problem with it is that you do not see vacancies listed in sites which are predominantly owner occupied. You have to go to the active investment areas, which is, of course, Inkster Park, most active industrial investment area in the city. So we looked at all of these numbers, and using the Johnson report, our opinion is that a 5% is reasonable. There's no such thing as a 1.5%. The rest of the costs we put in as we see. You can see the income and expense And their calculation of non-recoverables is extremely high, but of course that's because some of it is an owner space. But these are the cost to carry buildings. The cap rate, so our NOI is 80,762. The cap rate, again, this was not done by me. I'm an appraiser, and I would look at the environmental issues, and I can't tell you what I would put on it, but I think that that number reflects just a poor quality industrial site, and it does not reflect the obvious environmental impact. We're not going to change the number because that would indicate a lower rate, and we gave the assessor no warning of that. So we will stick with what was presented to you. I don't know. Yeah, I told you the story about me going to the bathroom. That was the highlight. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Harling, any questions on the applicant?
Just maybe a couple of quick questions. Just because I know you had pointed it out, and then I know it's in your brief, the unheated space you mentioned. So whereabouts, do you have any pictures to show where it is in the building?
I do, and they weren't placed in the report. I was just scanning. I have about 50 pictures, and it's like your office. Somebody else puts this together, and I have to present. And I said, you forgot this one, and this one, and this one. Gladly forward them to you, but that doesn't help the board at this point.
Oh, just just wanting to know, just to kind of just get an idea of where they.
Yeah. Okay. So on just on your sketch, on your photos, it's the section looking on page 6. It's the rear section that you had pointed out, and the north section of the elongated building. You're just looking at the pictures, you can see the lack of chimneys. And I think the section, I'm going from memory because I couldn't find the sketch either. The southwest section. I have my measurement notes, and that's all I have. Just double check something here. Pictures. Oh, okay. I found some other information here. Oh, okay. So I sent a picture, a letter to the city, and I referenced the commercial building summary. Sorry, all I have is my notes on file right now, where it was in January 17th, 2020, where I had provided the measurement numbers as a 19635, which we both adopted, and 2740 of that was unheated. Yeah, I just see if we had additional pictures of that. No, but from memory, it's the I'll call them the wings on the craneway section. There's a number of them that have been closed off and the heat turned off or disconnected or never installed. I don't know.
Okay, that's good. No, that's okay. That's all right. And I guess any other questions here? So like, and I guess just I know you had noted the, you know, what we obviously know what the site's being used for, and I know you had noted potential environmental issues, but like you said, obviously there would have to be some, you know, environmental site assessments done before that could be, you know, known 100%. So
No,
yeah,
that's right. It's not something that is registered, and of course, the date of these things predates the Manitoba Conservation's database by probably 20 years. So it's not something that they actively look for. So the way the process works today is if a permit's taken out on a removal of a tank or an installation, it's an automatic inclusion in the database. And if when they remove that tank, they will have to get a permit to remove it. Even an above ground tank, legally they have to get one. And on that basis, then it gets added to the list. So it's not that they're missing it. It's that we have a different process now. And the process is designed to capture all the contaminated land, but as it was triggered, it's sort of like an assessment that gets triggered by a building permit these years, and it's the same idea with conservation. So there's no doubt, and you can see that some of the other pictures we provided as well. I believe page 7 of my report shows a barrel of petroleum product on the gravel floor of the shack. That's a clear indication, and then there's a fluid that has seeped into that ground. You can see bottom of page 7 that there's leakage onto the ground floor. So again, it'll get picked up when there's a transaction or there's any sort of permit taken out.
Okay, you know what? I think that's good. I'll just leave it at that. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, any questions for the
Yes.
applicant?
Yes. So based on what you said about contamination, if I'm an investor looking at this property, Mr. Neufeld, I'm going to want to do a hazardous materials investigation. I think you used the words phase 1 and phase 2.
That's correct. And actually, you wouldn't do a phase 1. A phase 1 is a file search. Because there's no file. So you do a phase 2, which is testing.
So soil testing, water testing, that sort of thing.
Correct.
And there's a cost attached to that, of course.
Well, the report's $20,000 to $30,000 generally for it, but it's the impact of the testing, because then you'll do that and you'll bring it along. If you take a mortgage or you have investors, they'll be aware of it, and they will react to it with pressure on the value.
And depending on the potential for remediation costs, that's going to affect everything as well.
Right, because after the testing comes the remediation phase, the cost of that, and then after that is the ongoing monitoring, which is required, and reporting. It never ends. And then, of course, it's the market itself. They used to call it stigma. The new word is market resistance to detrimental conditions. Longer word, same thing. It's the property's been impacted. Now, in this case, to be truthful with you, the concern for that stigma is less so than if this were going to be redone in apartments or houses put up, because the cleanup requirements aren't quite the same. Anecdotally, I was once observed a cadmium spill in an industrial park. Environment said, put 2 inches, 2 feet of topsoil on top. That was the remediation, because it was an industrial area or old gas stations near the highway. Well, they said, well, there's a road going on top, no cleanup required, and no stigma attached to it. It's going to be based on your new use. So there'll be less so of it in this site, the stigma end of it, but the costs and the testing has not been accounted for.
But it could restrict what you put in there, then, is what I hear you saying, depending on what you wanted to do as an investor.
Yeah, well, for example, a food processing building would never go on the site.
Right. A daycare.
And food storage facilities, no.
Sure. Like I see daycares in the Chevrier industrial site. That wouldn't happen here.
Correct, and that's an accessory use. So if you had someone who wanted a manufacturing building and provide daycare for their employees' children, no, it's not going to happen here.
Okay. Okay. Well, of course, depending on the testing.
Yeah, and depending, well, again, the people who are buying and selling these, it's sort of like if there's even a hint of it, it goes on your permanent record. So there's other property use that's has never had a problem. So it's always going to be a negative.
Okay. So you're about 2 points different on the cap rate. And I look at your 8.25 and I wonder, and maybe you inferred this in your comments earlier, that there's a bit of a premium here for age and location and condition of the property. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, and lack of services. There's been no accounting in our cap rate for the environmental issues, and that's because people who prepare this report are not proficient in that field. I'm bringing it up as a comment that it should be higher, but we're not changing it.
Understood. I have no further questions, Mr. Chair.
So you said that the rent that was being received was about $632. Is that correct? Did you say that?
No, I did a rough calculation. I came up with 650 net from what I saw in the assessor's brief, and I just looked at the income coming in. It was all marked gross. I took the cost per square foot that are costed, and I worked it out to about 650 on that one space, the superior space. I don't know if you got 632. That's probably right in maybe you spent more time
Okay, so you're
than I did.
on page 17 of the assessor's brief. That's 7887 monthly rate is gross, you're saying?
Yes, that's correct.
You said it was marked as gross. Where do you see that?
Under on the rent roll side, place an X under the items that are included in the rent, and then all of them are X'd off.
Okay, fair enough. So on your cap rates again, we can go. So looking on page 2 on your chart, so this adjusted optimal on the bottom there, you get 6.50%. How did you arrive at that?
On our page,
And what does it mean?
it's the best rate for the best quality building in B industrial, and that would be indicated on our page. It's going to be around 40, 41. So the B's are 650 to 750. So when we do this this quantification of cap rate, we start as if the best possible at 650, and then look at the negative points on it, and that brought it to the indicated of 8.25. And what I was noting is that there was no consideration for the environmental portion. It was just age, condition. Oh, I forgot one other thing. They have an easement on the property. Oh, the building to, who's got the best picture here again? It's going to be the assessor's picture, page no, I guess ours is the best on this one. Yeah. So our small picture. Oh no, actually you can see it on the assessor's page 10. This is the front view of the site, and you'll notice there's a gravel paved gravel area in front of the buildings. That's easement. So they have to allow the neighbor to traverse the property to reach their site to the north. And our little picture on page 1 shows how that gravel extends to the neighbor's site. And so it's a restriction on usage of the front of the property. And it's about, just ballparking, it's probably about half an acre, roughly, of easement area.
Okay, so you have 650, Class B, 650 to 750 on your study. So this is a Collier's, right? Collier's study?
Yes, yeah, this would be a local market office study of rates, investment rates for industrial, and they're skewed to the definitions are listed on page a few pages later as to what is included in them. Page 44. So industrial B, average to good quality industrial buildings, typical somewhat dated construction, good quality functional space, less extensive features. And again, these are warehouse based. This is a manufacturing site. There are manufacturing sites usually don't trade between investors. It's not a desirable commodity. So what we are getting into the creation of a cap rate that is based on reasonableness as opposed to hard data. The reasonableness indicates that it's always going to cap higher than a warehouse because of the heavy usage it gets and the lower remaining economic life. And the fact that at end of term, you might get a contaminated building back, you'll get a dirty building back for sure, and all the risks associated with it. So we don't track those. So we started with a clean building, as a clean building only, 8.25 with the deficiencies. And then with the environmental, I noted in previous reports, which I had actually prepared, we were in the 9s for cap rate for previous years. And that had nothing to do with market conditions. That was purely to do with the quality of the building that we were looking at.
If I may just get back to where I was going with my question.
Sorry.
So yeah, you have six. Okay, again, on your study, you had 650 to 750, and this is the Collier study. If I look at the one that the assessors has, which is page 13 for industrial B, Collier's has 6 to 7.
Oh, there's an error in what they provided that we picked up after they had published, and we had notified them on that error. And the letter that we sent the city is on page 45 of my report. The point is they've never been authorized to use it, and we don't support anything the city says as Collier's. But since you're reading it, the boards are reading it, we have to tell them that that report was done in error. And what happened is people who were responsible for the report, I don't know, they were on holidays or something, and somebody slapped in one from another year. The numbers don't flow consecutively. It was obviously, and then I personally looked into it. We found out that had happened, and my punishment for finding the error is now that my department here in Winnipeg is now responsible for it. So I got extra work for us, but that is an error on it, and that the real numbers are page 45. And we also included the disclaimer on page 44 that is on that report that the city does not provide, warning them of this. If you're going to use our reports, you should do your own due diligence and make sure that they're right.
So the rate that you have there for the main building, 550, you're getting that from rents in the area? Variable
No,
rents?
the first part of it was the paid rent on the premium portion at 650, and the rest were from our tables and estimates of inferior industrial space from our tables.
Which is where?
On page, I think it was 7. No, sorry, 9 and 10.
Okay, it's quite the range you have there. 690 down to 349. So how do you come up with 550 from that chart?
Well, we looked at the lower end of the range, and for example, on page 10, 11 Mod is a very close comparable. That is an older lease. My understanding is that it was renewed. I once worked on that building. That came from the city of Winnipeg. A very good comparable. 600 Mission on there is another lower quality industrial space, and the rent is reflective of a lower quality industrial building. Those were the small ones. The other ones in this list tend to be more superior, and the hard part about this is I refer you to page is page 56, and we're trying to give you an indication here of how these get a working version of classes for industrial. So the building at the bottom of 56 is a modern flex warehouse, 27 feet clear, 32 exterior height, demised into bays, semi-trailer access, regular vehicle access, good location. That's Class A industrial, even though it's not really industrial anymore. A B, this is a good B, and this is a manufacturing facility that was good quality space, even has a daycare in it. And that's looked after. Now, most industrial are of this sort would fall below that, and so a C is an industrial strip mall, the contractor's facilities, some office up front, part storage in the rear, working space. A D would be a similar type of property, although with a single tenant user, which is worse than the multi-tenant. And then we have miscellaneous. That's Dominion Bridge site. This is a miscellaneous. That's the low end of the category. Dominion Bridge has outside space, outside storage, scrap metal everywhere, contaminated. Inside space available for lease. There's a chrome dipper in there. There's some other metal storage in there. So again, nobody tracks miscellaneous industrial cap rates. This is a reasonable interpretation of a better rate from the Bs to the miscellaneous.
So if I just make a comment here, and this is not an attack or anything, but it seems like you're using the same arguments, or using arguments. Okay, let me read. The arguments you're using to lower the rent are the same as the ones to increase the cap. Would that be fair?
Well, that's a good comment, and a fair comment, and because you're right in the respect that if you have a deficiency in the building, you don't go attack the rent and the cap, because if the rent's low, the cap can be normal in a deficient building because it has somewhere to go. That's called anticipation. However, my response to that was this building is so far past that stage that this isn't one that you're going to reclaim. You're not going to fix these problems. They will continue to decline. I'm gladly, and I don't know if you've ever heard me when I find a building where we've gone too low in the rent or too high in the cap, and I said there's got to be a balance, and we think that, and then I make the change at the board. because I agree with you. I don't on this. This is not normal property. None of these ones you're going to hear today are normal, pretty industrial sites. These are all dirty working buildings. They don't get that consideration. There's a one direction only, which is only things are going to get worse on these, not better. But I agree with you philosophically, and thank you. I'm waiting for someone to notice that. With
Yeah,
absolutely no flattery whatsoever. It's just a relief.
appreciate that. I don't think I have any further questions. So, anything in summation, Mr. Harling?
And I have
Excuse
no,
me.
I have no questions either.
Oh, sorry, did
Mr.
I miss
Chair.
you?
Yeah, that's okay. I have no further questions. They've been asked and answered.
Well, I apologize.
No worries.
Okay. Then we are finished with our questions on the panel. And anything in
Sorry.
summation, Mr. Harling? Anything in summation, Mr. Harling?
Oh, I apologize, I'm muted. No, I think I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay, anything in summation, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, I do. And I'm not going to stray into post reference, but I'm sure you'll pick up the inference. I first was approached by this property owner in 2017 as his business was hard hit by the first round of tariffs imposed by then President Trump. 2017, steel and aluminum, first time that president did it. But throughout Canada's trading history with the United States, steel and aluminum have always been on the table. So this building was built for basically processing steel materials, and the economic climate of 2017 led to the downfall or the change in this industry. You know, and we all heard what happened yesterday. We can't consider that, but we can consider that we're dealing with trade wars, tariff wars, et cetera, et cetera. This business, the steel industry, which this basically is impacted by it. Whether it was 2017 or 2023, not a nice investment for any investor when you know the industry is being attacked by your closest friend and supposed friend and neighbor. Thank you.
So noted. That will conclude this property at 2477 Day Street. And I have to take a break here, I'm afraid. So could we take a 10-minute break, please? Okay, we are back in order. We are going to proceed to the next property in our docket, item number 2, 1350 Saskatchewan. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Harding, can you please begin your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As indicated, the file number is 24-3728. The roll number is 13001892500. The address is 1350 Saskatchewan Avenue, and the owner is Ancast Industries Limited. 2025 roll year based on a reference date of April 1st, 2023 is an assessed value of $3,246,000. If we look under page 1 of my brief, the property description, you'll see this is a 1 to 2 story building. The actual years built range from 1912 to 1978. And we have an overall effective year built in 1930. The wall heights are 10 to 33 feet. Construction class is masonry bearing walls, and the zoning is M3 manufacturing heavy. The land area is 236,490 square feet with a planned area of 85,931 square feet. And we have a total leasable area of 90,103 square feet. And lastly, we have an overall land to plan area of 2.75. If we turn to page 2 of my brief, we'll see the request for income information has been received. There are no recent sales on the property, and there are no leases in place. Okay, so we turn to page 3 of my brief. As indicated, this is on 1350 Saskatchewan Avenue. So this is very close to as you can see, where it's situated. So it's again located on Saskatchewan Avenue, which is close to St. James Street. So it's in the St. James Industrial, close to Notre Dame Avenue. So, you know, just give you an idea of where it's situated. If I turn to page 4 of my brief, you'll get a better idea of where the property is with the little dot here. So you can see just Embers is close by as well. Okay, now if we turn to page 5 of my brief, you'll see the parcel outline at the top of the page 5. And you can again see where it's situated. And now at the bottom of page 5, you can further see parcel outline subject again, and it's where it's situated and the shape of the property. Turn to page 6 of my brief. Here's another photo of the property from Saskatchewan Avenue facing the building, and then at the bottom of page 6 is just a more closer up image of the building. Page 7 of my brief, just a further photo from the west side, and then at the bottom of page 7, this is just a rear of the subject property. Turning to page 8, this is just another further photo from a different angle. At the bottom of page 8 of my brief, this is a street photo on Saskatchewan Avenue facing a portion of the building. And this is continued on page 9. This is just the front of the, I guess, the main office space of the building. As indicated, it is owner occupied. I will mention, and it is the tenant there is called, the owner is Ancast Industries. So, you know, just from some pictures you may have been able to see, but they do iron casting and such like that for automotive industrial equipment and parts. So essentially just get an idea of what they do. So kind of a similar, you know, theme of some of the buildings we're dealing with here, as Mr. Neufeld indicated. In the bottom page 9, there's just a further photo. And then at the bottom of page 10, it's just another street view photo, just for an access to get to the back of the rear of the site. Okay, so if we turn to page 11 of my brief, you'll see here we have the one space. As I indicated, we have a total lease layer of 90,103 square feet, applying a model rent of $3.50 a square foot, which then gives us a potential rent of $315,361. We're allowing 4.5 for vacancy, which then gives us an effective gross income of $301,170. Applying an expenses of 3% is $4 a square foot of shortfall, which then gives us a net operating income of $275,916. And then lastly, we're applying an overall capitalization rate of 8.5%, which then gives us the estimated value of $3,246,000. Okay, so if we look at page 12 of my brief, some of my rent comparables here. So you can see some locations. We have King Edward, Sargent, 1451 Saskatchewan, 230 Panet, 55 Dunlop, 1150 Fife Street. So these are some of the rent comparables. They range in lease start dates from August 2017 to March 2022. Lease terms range from 1 to 18 years. Leasable areas range from 85,271 square feet to 108,187 square feet. Wall heights range from 18 feet to 25 feet. Effective rear builds range from 1966 to 2001, and the rents in place range from $4.16 to $6.04. You know, just to kind of make a note, I'm mindful of the fact of this building is obviously, you know, as you can see, the actual effective year built when it was first initially built. It's definitely a much older building. Again, used for, like I said, indicating iron casting and things like that. So I will note some of the comparables I have. I don't dispute would be probably superior. There's obviously not a lot of comparables at this size of this age, so I did have to expand my search a bit. So I'm just mindful of the fact of some of the comparables I've shown would be superior. So I just wanted to point that out. So the board maybe notice that. So, but we are again applying a much lower rent at $350. So because we are aware of the age and the condition and some of the issues with this building. If we continue page 13 of my brief, as indicated previously. So if you look at the industrial, we're using an 8.5 cap. So this obviously falls outside the 20th percentile of our cap rates, as well as looking at the outside sources. As Mr. Neufeld indicated, some of these properties are not your typical, high-end quality buildings, that would maybe transaction in the market as much. So, and the fact of being the age, the use of the building, as you can see, it was built in different stages. So, the different wall heights. So there's a number of factors that I don't dispute that make it not as superior as a lot of other properties. So henceforth why we'd apply a much higher cap rate to recognize some of those deficiencies. So I'm mindful it falls outside the range, but it would be due to some of the factors of the building. Page 14, just Municipal Assessment Act trip information. If we turn to page 15 of my brief, this is just the mailer. As I indicated, it's fully owner occupied, so there are no it's obviously not being rented. There's no leases in place. Page 60 in my brief, just the further, just just to showing some further information of the mailer, as they indicated, owner occupied. Page 17 in my brief, this is just an old site plan we had on file. I tried to find a floor plan that was, maybe showing more of the building itself. I have not inspected the building. So I was unfortunately able to find anything, because it's obviously an older building. We just don't have anything on file. So this is just as you can see, just an old site plan just to show the shape of the building. So it doesn't really show much of the specific areas, but yeah, just what I was able to find on file. And then lastly, on page 18 of my brief, is just a vacancy report to support our 4.5% vacancy, which I believe is supported by the outside sources. So that being said, I believe that concludes my presentation, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Neufeld, any questions on the assessor's presentation?
Oh, sorry, is my mic on? I lost my screen again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Okay, good. Sorry. So page 11 was prepared by the model.
It is all model derived, correct?
I'm not sure if I can ask this question in the board. You can tell me I'm out of order, but I think it's pertinent. Every year I've brought this property in since 2005. An assessor has approached us and offered us a very reasonable settlement on it, considering the issues you mentioned. And I'm just wondering, did we have a lack of communication this year?
You know what?
Sorry, I'm going to have to drop. I don't want to allow that question.
Okay,
What happens in the past is irrelevant.
Okay, that's fine. Have you ever inspected this building?
Physically, I've not been in, just a exterior. Yeah.
And you were clear that there is casting going on this, and that casting is can you describe the process at all, or do you know the process?
Like I said, I know it's iron casting. Then they make parts for, like, industrial manufacturing parts as well as automotive parts. But in terms of the actual process, like, I looked into their website a bit and what they do, but I can't say how they do it now. So
now on your business tax on this site, I'm looking at it now. You haven't indicated anything to do with unheated space. Do you know how much unheated of the space is classified as unheated?
No, actually, that was a question I was going to ask. So no, yeah, but no, I don't have the exact figures. No.
Well, I'm looking at the business tax site, and I'm wondering, do you know why you don't have the number in business tax does? Because the number of unheated is 81,619 square feet unheated.
Okay, yeah, I think you're bringing your own evidence in now, Mr. Neufeld.
Well, it's the assessment department's evidence they have another system that recognizes the unheated space, and I would just ask them, how come there's a difference?
Yes, I just think it belongs in your own.
Okay.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a city. Yeah. Okay. Carry on.
So does he have to answer that or not? That's fine with me.
Yes, he can answer it. Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, can you repeat the question? Sorry, just
Well, you have a discrepancy on unheated space. You quote none that I can note on the subject. You haven't indicated it, but the business tax indicates that 81,619 square feet, like 90% of the building is not heated. Is there anywhere on your report where you've noted that?
No, I've not noted that. The only, what I can look at is, like, we've applied a lower rent, would be based on the fact of the lower space, but the unheated space, but you're right. I don't have it anywhere in the brief. So.
Well, in the model that you've said on page 11, it's just called standard finish. Wouldn't a better, more accurate description would be an inferior finish of some sort rather than standard?
That's just, I think that's the classification how we have it. I can't speak to specifics, but I'm mindful of the fact there is a number of spaces that is unheated, though. Yes.
And does your model take into account the environmental impact of both the subject itself and the adjacent property?
I'm mindful of some of those factors that you've indicated in your brief, so, I don't have that information, so,
But if I wasn't asking if you are, I know you are, but does the model know it?
well, I mean, the way I would see it is, look, if we look at our page 13, we've applied a higher cap rate, so that would be probably part of the reason how we would acknowledge it, so.
Higher at 8.5, okay. When you have a property in your model that, sorry, where's the dividing line in the model in the highest and best use? Like at some point, a building is no longer economically viable. Does the model discern that? Or how would it do it?
You know what? I don't have the exact answer to that, so I can't speak to that.
Okay. And sorry, did I ask you this? You haven't been in the building, right?
No, unfortunately, no, I'm not. I'm not in a chance to
Okay.
see the property.
Okay. Well, I thank you for your comments. That's oh wait, your comparables. Yeah, you mentioned that. No, I think you covered all the questions I would have asked. Thank you for your presentation.
Sure, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
Yes. Do you know if this is on the registry for contaminants, this building?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, Mr. Newfield probably will go into it, but yeah, there is, I believe, a registration on this. Yeah.
Okay, so that'll have an impact.
Yeah.
Did you make any adjustments to the cap rate on this model-driven information?
No, it's everything here is model derived. So.
Okay, so that 8.5 comes out of the model.
Correct.
Okay. Do you know the process that goes into what this property does? Do you have an understanding of that?
Like I said, the iron casting, like I have a, a very, not a very, extensive, but I know some basics, if you will. Yeah.
So maybe I'll just ask some questions. You can try and explain to the best of your knowledge. What's the raw material that comes into this place? Do you know?
You know what? Like I said, since I haven't inspected, I don't want to make speculations. I'm sure Mr. Newfield probably would have some better answers to that. So I just don't want to like I said, make speculations. So yeah.
I don't see a rail spur attached to the property. It looks like, unless I'm missing something along Saskatchewan Avenue here.
No, I think I don't believe there's any type of rail spur line or anything that comes through train. I believe it would be through trucks. So.
Well, that's what I see on the property. It looks like big trucks bring whatever is going in, and big trucks take whatever is going out. But we'll ask Mr. Neufeld when we get to him.
For sure.
I'm fine, thank you. No further questions.
Okay. Ms. Schultz, any questions?
Asked and answered, thank you.
I do not have any questions either. Mr. Neufeld, can you please begin your presentation?
Thank you. And I apologize for stepping over the lines. I have bad habits. Building is owner occupied. It's a foundry. Clear, and the process is they bring in only ingots, so not recycled material, but mined ingots, and they have open pits with alloys and primary metals. So they'll cast in a variety of different metal types. And we never put the pictures in, and they were in an older drive of ours, and they're all fuzzy because we couldn't take a decent picture because of the fumes, and the older cameras didn't capture it. But I do have clear pictures because we did reappraise this site for insurance replacement value 2 years ago. But they use the electric powered pits. The ingots are dropped into the pits. They're melted. They're poured into a very large ladle. The ladle is taken by the overhead craneways to forms. The forms are generally in a sand casting, and they pour, and then they, I guess they cool off, and they cut the ends off, clean them up, and ship them out. It's a higher quality because they don't use recycled material, so it would be for premium applications. Some automotive, and some in plumbing. For example, if you're familiar with an industrial pump, the part where the rotor turns in, a cast piece like that would be one of the products that they manufacture, and those are again all alloys because of corrosion, their corrosion resistance. The point I was trying to make about the unheated space is it is nice and warm in there, but it's from the open pits of metal. They're going at 600 degrees Celsius approximately, and they go 24 hours a day because they can't let the metals cool off and solidify, because firstly it might break the pit they're in, and secondly it costs too much to reheat them. They have not used heating in 80,000 square feet of the building as a result of it. And even in the coldest days of winter, they'll often open up the sides of the building to let the heat escape. So when we brought the assessment department down to it, they did make a permanent change on the records there for the business tax. As you're aware, the business tax taxes heat. So that was removed, and they took off water. And of course, air conditioning. They do have hydro. So 8,484 square feet is considered to be have heat and air conditioning, and that's the office portion, at the front of the property, and the rest is not. Now, in terms of retrofitting that and saying, well, we fix it up and return it to it, no, it's impossible. This building, the primary parts of this building were built in 1912, and as the assessment department pointed out, an effective age of 1930. You do not disagree with that. The office portion dates from the 40s, I believe. I don't have I was sorry, I was just looking for the breakdown because we did have it, but I can't find the numbers. I don't think we're going to worry too much about it. This is primarily an open foundry pit. The registration on environment is listed on page page 9, and in addition, if you look at the pictures in the background, there's the old former landfill site. I have forgotten, I know there's a nice name for it, but in Winnipeg, I guess we just call it Garbage Hill. It's on the side of Garbage Hill, which is the landfill site, and that's loaded with methane venting. The entire site it should default to land value, except the amount of the cleanup is unknown. So we had we commissioned, paid the money for a cleanup construction quote, I think it would default to that value. As it stands, we stuck with the income approach workup, which not appropriate for a property like this. It's already below any sort of an income basis. We had the one rent that I mentioned to you on our page. Page 10. This is about the only true rent I've ever found in Winnipeg for investment rent. This is approximately 30,000 square foot site with a 40-foot clear height, built in the 40s, and with really good loading capability. It is probably superior to this site in ceiling height, and but at some point when you reach an unheated property like this, those differences are subtle. You have gone to the bottom of the range, and you can't go lower artificially. So we're sticking with $1.75, and the rest of the application of parameters is just as general market rates. And the cap rate considers the environmental in this case, and you'll notice that we made that on our page 1. The age of it, the open sections, like the condition on this is a 0, and it's not fixable. So this isn't a case where you want a low rent, you want a high cap because you're trying to posture or anything. Again, it is what it is. This is never going to get remediated. This will stay doing what it's doing while it's still economically viable. And as I had said earlier about the 2017 experience, that this business is in the steel and metals industry, exporting to other countries around the world, and very hard hit when economic times change, as they did in 2017. The only value on this site is the salvage value. And now you'll notice in my pictures that we have on, for example, page 6, an exterior craneway, a very good capacity. So that has a salvage value. And that influenced us to put any value on this property at all. I can't read the exact tonnage on that. It might be a 5-ton. Actually, to me, it looks much bigger than a 5-ton. That might be a different number. So that's has a salvage value. And there's also some interior craneways. Most of them, though, are more like lines, travel lines. Those have no salvage. So they have this line that snakes through the building. It's about 550 feet of overhead crane, and it's got a pathway, and that was custom designed for the site. No salvage on there, but inside they do have a craneway. A craneway is 2 sides and a bridge down the middle. Those have salvage value. And I don't think we showed you a picture of the craneway inside. There is a picture of the crane pathway on page 5, interior crane pathway. So the only value in this lies in is salvage of craneways, which probably generate $200,000-300,000. And the residual value of the land after it's cleaned. Cleanup is completely unknown, or even if it's viable. My opinion is that should this at some time go on the market and be surplus, that the city may be interested in extending their park on top of the landfill site to include this land as a donation. I did want to mention one other thing on the zoning. It's currently M3. Now there has been movement in the city to try to change the M3 classifications in this general neighborhood to an M2, and that's to account for the growth of retail. I think this is probably too far away from the retail, so probably no endangerment to the M3 zoning, but certainly there would be a reluctance on the city's part to approve any new usage to M3, because they really want to see that moved to different parts of the city, not the St. James area. That's just been our experience with the erosion of the M3 zone land. We've seen it on Kenniston, we've seen it on Melnick. It's the way the planners are going to react to the population control interests. So I think this one is done well. We got the right rent, and I think I find myself very pleased with the cap. I don't think you're going to see any investment in a site like this unless there's a short-term return on it. And I'm not trying to be funny, but it's the truth. It's going to be limited by the term of the next U.S. president as to how much that investment window is. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Harling, any questions on the applicant's presentation?
You know, most of them have been answered, but I guess just maybe just a kind of a question I maybe just can maybe this could kind of answer going forward too. You know, when you like you know, I don't disagree with you in some of the issues of the property. I'm not trying to dispute that at all. So, you know, when you come up with your cap rates, obviously, and I know you have the chart here, like I was just curious, how do you like what factors, like how do you derive, you know, how do you come up with it exactly? Like is it like what like I mean, because when I look at you put like the point scale and stuff like that, I'm always just curious, like how do you, is it kind of like how do you come up with the values? I
Well,
guess?
okay, and again, I didn't produce this. I do teach people the approach to consider. You have a short-lived project, and a typical capitalization rate has an economic life that has expectation of about 35 years. So if you compress the amount of years to reality, then you change the cap rate, and it's a you can do it on an Excel spreadsheet by simply taking an amortization of 35 years and then taking the same capital and then saying, now I would like my recovery in 10 years as an example. So that then is going to generate a cap rate of 12% on the math wise. So at this point, there are no comparables. There's a reasonableness, but in the way all the education that I had to go through and all appraisers have to go through, we are taught the mathematical formula for it. So we in this case, we would go to that. So the 9.73 is going to indicate an approximate remaining economic life of 12 years on this, and that's how it's derived at. And as well as the second part of that, sorry, and this is, you asked for it, you get it, the long answer. The second part of it is we have 5 industrial brokers here who buy and sell these properties. We confer with them and say, what would you see it going on the market? The answer on this one was always, you know, probably a rate per square foot of the land and not the usable building. That would be what it would get for it. So that's our double check. In this case, no one responded with any sort of anything resembling an income value.
Okay, you know what? I think I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Right. Ms. Schultz, any questions for the applicant?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
Just a couple, almost of interest, more than anything. How are those pits heated?
Electric heaters.
Okay.
It's I have pictures in my my other report we did on it for the insurance, but it's an electric base on it. In the I guess the pits themselves are a metal that has a melting point above the molten part,
Right.
and it's an open top.
And they throw the ingots into the pit in order to melt them down.
Yeah.
Then that goes into the tooling and forms for the product that they produce.
Yeah, and they ladle it out into the buckets.
Yeah.
And then the overhead railway will take the bucket over to the pouring area.
Yeah.
And they stand well back, and then they flip the motor, and it goes into the sand forms.
Understood. Used to be in the manufacturing business.
Oh, okay.
I think I know how that works. I'm interested in the pits. How deep are those pits?
They are chest high.
Oh, okay. So not deep pits.
No, they're about I'm gonna say 8 to 10 across, and the feet and the ladles are that go in there. I sure wish we had given you these pictures that I'm looking at, but the ladles are about 3 by 4, and they scoop up and fill, and then they pour.
You know how many pits there are?
13.
13 pits, and roughly what percentage of the building would that? just rough.
Yeah, I was gonna say about 40 to 50% is the pits, and then the rest of the building are the pouring areas. So when they do the cast pourings, some of the cast is on a belt and brought into I guess a curing facility of some type. Some is left out to cure on their own, or not cure, form. Um, and that occupies about again 40-50% of the building, and then the other 10% is staff rooms and office portion.
And do you have any, Mr. Chair, I do have I'm following a path here. I will get to it in a minute. Sorry for so many questions. Do you have any idea what the lead component of all of this is? Is there a lead component?
Yes, there is definitely a lead component because the metals are industrial based, and everything uses, even the ones, most parts have some degree of lead, but very little. I don't know for sure what it was, and it was something that they weren't interested in sharing.
Yeah, I bet. So and that then leads to the contamination.
Well, that and you know, there's the oil that they use for forms and things like that, which is just, of course, there's going to be spillage because you got big buckets, and yeah, it's generally my understanding is my dad had a business where we used to sell the chemicals to the to small scale foundries, and we knew what they were using. Very toxic stuff, and you're right. And then any sort of lead, if there'll be a degree of say cadmium or lead, or I'm trying to think of the other materials, they'll have some degree of it.
So those pits, have they been burning since 1912?
Not individually, but yes,
Yeah,
there
okay.
has been a pit burning since 1912. I guess they changed them, modernized a few more of the time when electricity came in.
Yeah, I imagine. And where I'm going with this is the whole notion of remediation of this property, and an investor looking at it and saying, well, yeah, we can tear anything down,
Right.
but what do we do with what's underneath the buildings? What's left behind in the soil quality, the water quality? Is that
Right.
true?
Yeah, and you know, where we've seen operations like this, the closest we've ever seen to it is a couple of sites where they had to excavate down 20 to 40 feet, take the soil and bring it to the facility. I think it's in St. Agath, and they incinerated it, and they replaced it with clean fill. That's more than likely what I see happening here, and that costs, well, several $100,000 per acre. So the other alternative is to take it and seal the top of it and put a use on that's never going to have human habitation whatsoever, whether it be workers or a resident. So like a parking lot or a something like that.
That helps me understand your comments about this is
like the
some
other side
zero place for future development.
Right. The other side I've seen happen was an excavation of 6 feet clean fill and then 2 feet of gravel on top. So that alone is a $300,000 an acre cost. So it's no one's going to do it. And then, well, for example, Dominion Bridge, the city took that in repossession, and I think the cleanup bill was like 25 million on that site. So and a similar process, because they were making girders there, not viable, I suppose.
And has that had a major impact on your cap rate, the whole non-remediation capability, etc.? Has that had?
Yes, that was the only way we could address it under the income model, was to have the high cap rate. essentially, the interesting question raised earlier is an investor would probably look at a shorter term than the 12 years here and likely get a higher rent, but the value wouldn't change. I think you'd probably see a 20% cap and a $4 rent, which gets your remaining economic life down to about 8 years, a short-term window, and then there's money to be made, along with the guarantee that they would not be held liable for contamination, that it would revert to the previous user. And on the market, I have seen that before. It wasn't something we were going to go through in a lot of detail to present to the board. We're oversimplifying it, but I think we're pretty good on the number.
And my last question, just looking at this 5.5 acre site on Saskatchewan Avenue, if I'm an investor and I'm looking for a 5.5 acre light to heavy industrial setting, is this where I'm going to put it? In Winnipeg? Or are there more desirable?
Well, right now, the anything related to road transport would never want to be here just because of the ease of access getting in, the cost of the fuel. They're all going to Centerport, and they'll pay more money to go there because operating costs have gone so high. There might be some uses that are of interest, and it really doesn't matter if the place is redeveloped. They're still going to have to deal with to get their permit, the environmental side of it. So I think the costs are going to be too high to find another use unless there was, I was thinking of something like a storage site for heavy equipment might be workable, but I have a lot of clients who need storage space for heavy equipment. They would like to be located on the perimeter highway so they can get their equipment moved out to site. So it's a nice theoretical question. I see very limited possibility.
Thank you. I always appreciate your insight and knowledge on these things, Mr. Neufeld. Good answers here. Thanks a lot. No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Just on your discussion you put forward about the unheated spaces. So there are some offices and washrooms and things like that in here. So would those spaces be heated by normal means, like with a normal furnace and things like that?
Yes, that's correct. So the office portion, which is at the front part of the building, I'm just looking for a picture to point it out to you, is got on the assessor's got a pretty good picture on page 6, the bottom. So the sort of a 2-story white colored building. Sorry, it's 3 stories, white colored building. And if you look close, you can see a package system air conditioner compressor near the front entranceway. Mm-hmm. So this was a steam boiler heated building, and I think it was converted to the package system probably a couple of years ago, 20 years ago. So this would be traditional space, and they have a great view out their window of that craneway.
And then it appears as if that building behind the craneway, that smaller one, has some mechanical systems on top as well that seem like conventional.
Yeah, those have to do with the manufacturing system. So those are cooling units for a system. And just trying to remember, they have a I think those, yes, I'm pretty sure that those relate to part of a curing process for the metals, because look at the size of them. That's probably about 60 tons of cooling capacity, just judging by the fan count. So that would indicate an industrial. How do I know this? I'm involved in a project where we just bought one of those for cooling mining water, and that's what this is. It's an industrial cooler for the processing facility. And then beside it, there's makeup air units. Though those aren't for heating; those are for exhaust and replacing the air inside. And the chimneys that are placed throughout are above the pits, the molten metal pits for ventilation out. There is, I'm just trying to remember, there is a small staff area, and that's to the right of the office building and the bridge to the next section. See, there's a section in the middle bottom that looks like a rusted roof. But the bridge from that section to the office building is the staff room for lunchroom and change room.
Okay.
So
Anyways,
yeah.
yeah. So the rest of the building is not heated by conventional means, but by the furnaces that they use to manufacture the product.
Yeah, there's so much heat coming out of them that the buildings were altered at one point to allow entire sides to be opened up to bring the temperature down. The pictures, most of the pictures I showed you in our report were taken in the winter.
Sure.
And that's when we were I was down there and there's two sets of pictures. One is three sets, actually. There were three sets of inspections we did. My first one was in the wintertime with the sides open.
If I had to guess, I would probably think it's better to work in the winter in this facility than it is in the summer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, yeah, so I guess my point is that the rest of the building doesn't really need conventional systems of heating because it already has the furnaces, right? So
yeah, and
they're redundant. They'd be redundant, basically. So that's why they're not there. Now, if somebody wanted to come, somebody thought that they could actually do something with this place other than what this industry is doing, they would have to, likely put in all these systems to make it work, right? So,
well, yes, and most of these sections of the building would be next to impossible because the changes they made were rather permanent. So if you wanted to reheat, and then you would have to insulate, like a lot of the walls, the 1912 and prior to the 40s walls were masonry block. The small ones, the 8x2s, 8x2, 8x3 brick, fire brick, and so those aren't great for that style of insulation, thermal insulation. I'm just looking at pictures which I failed to give you. So I think you need a complete system and a complete new envelope. And then, of course, you'd have to just figure out if your framing is still good. The outside pictures show a metal roof with a fair amount of corrosion on it. I imagine you need to seal that or replace it. I'm about 105% sure it's a teardown for reuse.
So if the market remains, viable for this company into the future, you believe that there's about 12 years left with this facility? Is that what you said? Yeah.
Well, yeah, there would be obviously reviewed on the way. It's on when you have a building with a short economic life, it could keep going for a long time, or it could end the next day. So a safe number was in that 12 year range?
Okay, I have no further. Anything in summation, Mr. Harling?
No, I think I'll be good to continue to keep going.
Anything in summation, Mr. Neufeld?
Just personally, I'm happy to see Winnipeg has industries like this, and it'd be too bad we don't have more. But they're actually doing something more for our economy than a warehouse or a retail store. But the building, the real estate itself, has negligible value. Thank you.
Okay, that will conclude item number 2, 1350 Saskatchewan. Our next and last item on the docket, number 3, is 550 Messier. This is an application for a revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Harding, can you please begin your presentation?
Thanks, Chairman. The file number is 24-4002. The roll number is 06093462-160. The address is 550 Messier Street. The owner's number company is 6539963 Canada Limited. The 2025 roll year based on reference to April 1st, 2023 has an assessed value of $3,422,000. If you look under page 1 of my brief, we'll see this is a 1 to 2 story building. The actual and effective year built range from 1976 to 2013. And we have an overall effective year built of 1976. The wall heights range from 11 feet to 40 feet. The construction class is A-proof fire structural steel. The zoning is M3 manufacturing heavy. We have a total land area of 616,219 square feet with a plan area of 52,030 square feet, which gives us a land to plan area of 11.4. And we have a leasable area of 54,430 square feet. On page 2 of my brief, we'll see the request for information has been received. There are no recent sales on the property and there are no leases in place. Okay, turn to page 3 of my brief. As I indicated, this is on 550 Messier Street. So this is, as you can see here from my picture on page 3, so this is located kind of going around the St. Boniface area. So you can see here Dougal Road is close by. Archibald Street would be the main street running closest to the subject property, which we'll see in some further pictures, but just to give you an idea where it's situated. If we turn to page 4 of my brief, this is just a aerial view of the subject where it's located. Okay, now if we turn to page 5, this gives you a better idea here. You can see the parcel outline of the subject property again, located on Messier Street here. And as I indicated, just to the west of it would be Archibald Street. And turn to page 6, this is just a more further in zoomed up photo of the subject. So you can see here, again, similar to the previous picture, just more zoomed in and you can see the streets. Okay, so we turn to page 7 here of my brief. You'll just get an idea, better idea of the subject property here. It is being used by a business called Industrial Metals. So as you can see here, it's essentially, I think it goes with the theme of what we're dealing with here today. So it's a metal recycling type use site. So you can kind of obviously see some pictures of what they're doing here on pages 7 at the top and the bottom. This is continued on page 8. As I indicated, actually no, we'll keep going, sorry, page 8. If we turn to page 9, this is just some further photos of the building. So as I indicated, the ages range from 1976 to 2013. So the building where it's got like more of the gray roof, that would be the newer portion. And then the part with it's more of like the darker beige, kind of brown roof, that's the older portion. So just to get an idea of what was the difference in the building ages. If we turn to page 10 of my brief, this is just a further photo, again, just for a different angle, just to show the property. Okay, now if we turn to page 10 of my brief, we'll just see the income workup. So we have the two leasable premises, or the two areas. So we have 52,030 square feet at $5.23 a square foot, which gives us a potential rent of $272,117. And then we have a 2,400 square feet of mezzanine space, which we also include here at $468 a square foot, which is a potential rent of $11,232. This gives us, again, a total potential rent of $283,349 and a total leasable area of 54,430 square feet of leasable area. And we're using an overall blended rent of $5.21 a square foot. If you look below the income valuation here, as indicated, $283,349 for the potential rent, allowing 3% for vacancy loss, or sorry, yeah, for vacancy loss, which then gives us an effective gross income of $274,849, applying 3% for expenses, as well as $4 a square foot of shortfall, which then gives us net operating income of $260,072. And then lastly, we're applying a capitalization rate of 7.6%, which then gives us the estimated value of $3,422,000. Okay, if we turn to page 12 of my brief here, some of the rent comparables. Some of these would be similar to some of the ones I previously. So we have 2475 Day, 1169 Sherwin, 1670 Inkster, 1750 Inkster, 99 Bannister Road, 1175 Sherwin, and 550 North Point Highway. So these start dates range from November 2018 to April 2022. These terms range from 1 to 10 years. Leasable areas range from 30,240 square feet to 61,400. We have wall heights ranging from 14 feet to 30 feet. Effective year builds ranging from 1969 to 1982. And the rents in place ranging from $5.67 a square foot to $9.32 a square foot. Okay, so if we turn to page 13 of my brief, under the cap rate information, under industrial. So as I previously mentioned in previous properties I mentioned, cap rates of 5.3 to 7.3 year, with the cap rates for 20th to 8th percent of our cap rates for city of Winnipeg can fall within. We're using a 7.6 cap rate. We're slightly higher than our 20th to 8th percentile. Again, some of the factors that we derive, that would be, the age of the building, the use of the site, some of those factors. So I don't believe a higher cap rate is unreasonable. And again, I believe we've shown our cap rate with 7.6 would be reasonable based on the outside sources as well. But again, in some of the issues or conditions of the property and what it's used for, and the ages of the buildings. Page 14 of my brief is just some municipal assessment actors of information. If we turn to page 15 of my brief, we'll just see here that it's mailer, which they've indicated fully owner occupied, which I've indicated. This is continued on page 16 of my brief, just to further show that. And then if we turn to page 17 of my brief, you can see the site plan here. So this is just when it was, as you can see here, the one existing building is the older one here, the one-story concrete warehouse, and then the addition that was added, as I indicated, built in 2013. Page 18, 19 of my brief are just some building section information. Page 20 of my brief is just the permit that was taken up when the addition was built in 2013, as indicated. And then lastly, page 21 is just some vacancy report support for the vacant model, or the vacancy report we've applied to the subject property. That being said, that concludes my presentation, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, any questions for the assessor?
I really need 5 minutes break right now, if that's possible.
Okay, 5 minutes, please. Okay, back in order, and we were at Mr. Neufeld's questions for the assessor. Please proceed, Mr. Neufeld.
The workup, page 11 by the model.
Correct, model derived, yes.
And you have 2 sections. Are you able to explain the difference in the sections?
The 52,030 square feet would be like the entire building area.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the 2,400 square feet would be the second floor mezz space on top of like the office area. So
oh, that's what I was wondering. So it's on top of the office. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in this building?
No, unfortunately, no, I've not inspected it. So
I'm going to ask the same question I asked earlier. I'm going to make sure I phrase it in such a way and that's appropriate. But I was looking at the business assessment information, which indicate that 49,990 square feet is not heated. Do you have that anywhere on this?
I don't have that in my brief, nothing of that, no. And I did look into the business assessment on our website, so I'm mindful of some of the space here, but I don't count 49,000, I guess. Maybe I'll have to double check it again. So, but
well, does not that same record indicate the premise area is only 52,030 square feet, which is the plan area?
That would be the plan area, correct? Yes, it's not taking into account the mezzanine space.
So why wouldn't the business assessment do the office and the realty assessment does?
You know, honestly, that's, you know, I agree with you. That's something that should have to be checked, to review that, because I think it should be included, honestly, so I'll have to look into that, so.
You're saying that, but you haven't been in the building to look at it. Have you seen pictures of it,
I actually have seen some pictures, yes.
of that space?
Correct.
Above the office?
Yes,
Is it in your report?
it's not my report, no.
I'd certainly be willing to, and not consider any, restrictions on providing that to the board now if you want to, but I have some myself, so maybe we'll rely on them. And the site, sorry, is in use as a scrapyard. So did you search the environmental database?
I did look, I couldn't find anything, but I mean, again, like the records that indicate online, that's all they would show, so.
Yes, and the materials that they recycle, do you know what they are?
Particular exact materials, no, but obviously scrap metal, I'm sure of various types, so.
Okay. Are you familiar with the impact of Freon?
I know what Freon is. I know it can be, you know, I know what it is though, yeah, so yeah.
Okay. And there, I'm looking at your picture. You show an active rail line.
Yes, there's the rail line, correct, behind
An active rail line.
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. Now on page 20, you have a permit, and it says create a new one-story, 26,530 square feet shell only addition. Do you know what that means?
Like what the shell means, like it would be like
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, like an open space, essentially, yeah, just a big open space, if you will, yeah.
Did you look into the permit to see if there was a mechanical drawings at all?
I don't have any of the other additional like plans or anything like that on file, so.
Page 17, where does this sketch come from?
This was a site plan I was able to find, so.
So what does ponding mean?
I don't know the extent of what they mean by that, so.
Are these showing land drainage sewers? I've never seen a sketch like this before, so I'm just wondering what this, if that would be a land drainage system inlet.
You know what? Like I said, I don't want to make speculations.
Okay.
I did notice that, yeah. So I mean, you know, that I think that's maybe a fair potential observation on that, but again, I don't know 100%. So like I said, I don't want to make exact statements or anything like that. So,
are any of your comparables on page 12 scrap metal operations?
No, I don't believe they would be. So I mean, they're pretty challenging to find a lot of those. So yeah, if they really rent out, right? So.
The zoning M3, would you know about the permissibility of this usage in any other zoning? Is it permissible?
To use this, no, M3, you'd have to have M3 to use this, yes. So.
Okay, all right. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Ms. Schultz, any questions?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
Yes, please. Just a little bit of confusion on page 11.
Sure.
Bear with me, this is where you valued it. You call it a heavy manufacturing, but then you get onto the premise ID and it's called a retail warehouse.
Yeah, you know what? I totally agree with you. I noticed that too as well when I was when I had it was created. So I think it might be a typo. Yeah, I think it might be a typo because I don't think that should not be the case.
Okay, let's just clarify. Thank you. Yeah. Wondered about that. So I'm looking at your photographs, 9, 10. You probably know I always focus in on this land plan ratio thing. So it's a real bugaboo with me. The building actually takes up a very small portion of the 14 acres. And the rest seems to be scrap metal heaps and all kinds of other things. Was any consideration given to excess or surplus land?
You know, when I look at the way this building or how this land is situated, you know, I really wouldn't put much weight on that because I mean, obviously for the function of use of the site, like as you can see here, they have all the piles here, everything is like I think it would be very challenging for them to utilize that space for more than what they're using. So in that case, I don't, you know, we wouldn't have really put much weight on that. So
I couldn't characterize this as just poor land management and straighten up your act here and you'd have a heck of a lot of excess land or surplus land. But I hear you that it is what it is, right?
for sure, yeah.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
At the very beginning of your presentation, Mr. Harling, you mentioned the effective age of the building. What was that year that you had mentioned?
It was overall we're using 1976.
Overall, 1976.
Correct.
So part of it is 2013, though. So how can the overall be 1976?
Yeah, well, and I agree with you. When I was looking to that, I'm not sure. Maybe there was someone when we looked at the addition that we added, maybe it wasn't adjusted. But yeah, I agree with you. It probably would be, you know, if you're just looking, and especially since they're very similar in sizes, like the actual addition size, the existing size. So yeah, you could argue it's a bit higher, obviously, but that's how we have it currently. So,
Because I'll just mention that, and I've been lobbying the assessors since I started here, that's actually a very helpful figure overall age of the property.
no, for sure. Yeah, like I said, that's what we always try.
Yeah.
I always try to.
It tells me a lot more than 1976 to 2013.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely I noticed that too. So I'll have to maybe look into that further and maybe adjust that accordingly. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think I have don't have any other questions. Well, Mr. Neufeld, can you please begin your presentation?
Thank you. The site is scrap metal yard, and it's been in that use for a long time. I think that's a third generation family right now running it. So I don't have the exact start date or construction date of any of these buildings. If you, from our picture on page 1, you can see that there's a second roll to the northeast, and it's comprised of 3 sections and sort of an L shape. This is part of the same economic package. It's owned by the same company, and it was divided. The title was divided for and assessed separately because at one point it was their original recycling facility, and it had the tractor shop inside this facility and the rail access. It was leased at some point to Freon's company that was disposing of fridges and extracting the Freon. But both sites utilize all of the land. So when you think about a land ratio as an example, it is combined for both sites on the usage of it. And you can see the rail spur goes right through the middle of them. They do use the rail. They recycle a lot of different types of metals and a lot of different types of uses. In my inspections on them, on the entire site, I've noted the Freon, I've noted batteries, and lots of other metals. And I can't tell you I'm an expert that can look at a piece of lead and say it's lead, but I've looked at the materials that they bring in, and that goes, I believe that it's safe to assume that that's also part of it. A fair amount of leakage, both in petrochemicals and other issues. There's no I don't think that there's a drainage basin that was installed in this. Like oftentimes you'll see a clay liner. I don't see it, but that's why I was curious about the assessor's drawing, because it looks to me at some point in the past there was some sort of basin installed for drainage. I don't know what that is, and so I like he and I were both guessing on what that might be, but from my own observations, it appears to go to the ground, entirely to the ground. The buildings, there's only a very small section that's heated. The best, again, I guess we have to look at the assessor's pictures, which are much better than mine. Again, they pay for like really good quality imagery. But on their page, a good picture would be page 8. It's the irregular shape, and there's approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. So the one furthest north is the office section, and that's I think we're not disagreeing. That's about 2,400 square feet. And then it has package system heating with air conditioning. The rest of the buildings are unheated. Now, you'll note that on the newer section with the higher ceiling, there are 5 units on the roof. I was looking for the plans just to make sure that this is in writing, but this is not cooling or heating. This is air filtration. Cleaning. From the pictures on the inside, which we have on our page, starting on page 4 on the right hand, my page 4 on the right hand side, this is what's inside that building. It's a very large sorting machine for sorting the metals by different grade. This is all unheated, and they utilize tractors. In this case, you can see a forklift with propane. In other pictures, which I have on the site, we have diesel-powered excavators going to the site, as well as a machine, and that explains the necessity for air filtration. This was designed and built to be unheated. Now, the section between the new section in the office is shown on our page 3, and that was designed to be heated, and over the years not heating it, you can see what happens to buildings that were designed to be heated and they didn't keep heating it. Eventually the moisture comes in the daytime warm, at night it freezes, it gets into the masonry and breaks it off, and then causes corrosion on the inside. That's what's done, and that's what they use. Bottom of page 3, right corner, is the view from the so-called mezzanine. I took this standing here, looking down on the rest of the site. Again, it was a cold day. I first hand can tell you it's not heated. Now, the upper mezzanine that the assessor has included is on that page 3, middle picture, left side. That's what they're characterizing as being rentable space. There is no heating. There is no plumbing. There is no electricity because there are no lights. It's just, and those are spare tires there. So those are the winter tires of the owner's vehicle. No, those are the summer tires of the owner's vehicles, because it was cold that day. And the boxes of storage. It's on a plywood floor, plywood deck. Underneath it is the office. We do not count that as rentable space. It would be a violation of standards. Page 3, bottom left picture, is a stack of appliances waiting for freon extraction. I believe those are freezers. Then there's some pictures of what's stored on the site, as well as I've been out there so many times. These were taken in stages. Page 4, bottom right, is the construction of the newer section. And then the further pictures on page 6 were just a Google Earth to show the street access and the rail access. Of note is that their site is not paved. This is a legal non-conforming use. All sites that get developed after a certain age in the city of Winnipeg have to be paved. I think the rules are a bit looser in St. Boniface because we're on a road here that's got ditches and is a little asphalt top section of gravel. But this is the nature of the neighborhood, and I guess when we think of alternate use, we're certainly not going to be seeing an apartment being built down this or a house or anything of the sort. It will remain M3 zoned rough land, and that's the characterization of the neighborhood. The looking at the rents, we applied $5 to the new section that is not heated, but it's new. It's got a high ceiling, and what's interesting about it is most unheated buildings that you run into were not built and were planned and built as being unheated. They're usually a building that was heated at one side where they disconnected everything because there's no point anymore. And like the last two buildings we had discussed. The reason we put a higher rent on it is because it was built and approved as an unheated building with proper air filtration for the systems going in and out. The door is open all winter long because they have to take metal in that's dumped in the yard, take it by tractor, not the little forklift, but a big front end loader, dump it into the tray and let the machine do its sorting. And then put it back into the yard in this specific area where the metal goes. Made me think that it was if you wanted an unheated building that was effective at what it does, then it's worth more than one that just kind of fell into that. That's why we put a rent of $5 on it. It's a very superior unheated building. And the inferior part, $1.75. I've already shown you the one comp we had on that, which is a great comp, really good. Yeah, I gotta change the way I talk these days. I think it's a very appropriate comp. And then our overall, the office is nothing to speak of. It's a receiving facility. So there's a scale somewhere in the yard, and someone brings their scrap metal. They come inside and they register, and I guess payments arrangements are made, and it's a working office, very, very basic construction. Could not see that anything more than that should be done. So our overall average is 354. In regards to some of the comps we looked at, again, basic industrial goes as low as 349 a foot. There is a site I wanted to point out, and I'm just trying to remember. It's on I have a recycling facility in here. Oh, okay. So sorry, that was an older rent, and it might not be in use any longer as a recycling facility. A cleaner one, a clean recycling facility, specific materials they accepted. This is just an all around any metal whatsoever. You would go to this site. And rail would be outbound, and inbound would be trucks from supplying from the neighborhood. This then goes to facilities that do the actual smelting and reducing it to metal to be used for manufacturing. It's sort of like we're seeing the lifespan here in Winnipeg, where you got bring in the garbage, truck it out, melt it, and bring it back clean and refined and make something new out of it. All part of the circle of life. As far as registration, I couldn't find a registration, but I gotta think that this one's obvious. It is impacted by environmental. Cleanup is not a prospect that is going to be cheap. It'd be costly. Alternate use. Likely, after cleanup, you would consider, there are a few uses around the neighborhood that could be done, not food processing. There are a few others. They're not, they're all going to be M3 zone uses, which are fewer and fewer. Cement plant, if there was economic need, because it's centrally located. Not trucking because the routes are too, Messy is not a good transportation street. Maybe something that can utilize the rail. Rail, incidentally, is a diminishing interest yeah, and that's due to the rail lines. The last time I appraised a rail property, which was a few months ago, CN was beginning to restrict rail movements to 150 cars minimum, which is an entire train. They were not interested in small shipments. So what this site would need is would be to expand its rail to have more room for 150 cars, and then be able to do their own marshaling of the cars in the interior space in order to if someone were to redevelop it. I believe their existing contracts with the rail lines allow them fewer capacity, and their line is a spur that ends in the middle of the property. I can't see the count on this, but to me it looks like they probably got about 10, 12 cars that fit in here. Oh, I see. Here's one picture that's got 7. So it's a bit less than that, probably 8, 9 cars. Not much else to say. It is what it is. It's just dirty industrial. This is never an investment interest, a recycling facility. Not this type anyway. They don't make nice clean plastic that they convert old bottles into tennis balls and planks for your picnic tables. This is dirty. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harling, any questions for the applicant?
Just one, I'll try to keep it brief. You know, I know I haven't inspected any properties we spoke to on the dock today, so it might be a good idea for us to maybe do that. But my question is like, so the space that you say is unheated, is that the newer space you're saying that's unheated then? I just want to make sure.
Everything from the office is except the office is unheated, because they're constantly going in and out with tractors all day long, all year long, and there's no need to heat recycled metal. So the employees walk around in the winter in their parkas and coats, and in the summer in their reflective uniform. And spend most of their time inside the tractors of the cabs of the tractors.
Okay. Because I don't know. I mean, again, since I haven't inspected, I can't speak for it. I just noticed on like page 3, your bottom picture, the very bottom left-hand corner, right-hand corner. I just couldn't. I don't know. I thought I saw like a fan at the overhead fan, so I wasn't sure if that was just like that was a heating unit or something or not. Maybe or.
Yeah, I know that there are fans in there, but they're for moving the air, for dealing with the buildup of exhaust gases. I see a ductwork on the top right, page 4, and that's from the overhead unit. But that's not a heater. You can see that's just a duct. It's air filtration around the big machine. I mean, I've been in it. I've brought assessors in it. We try to target our inspections for the winter time, and there's no climate control. I think I have the plan somewhere, and I was looking for a copy of them to forward to you, just so you can see it. But I mean, we've done a lot of work on this site for different purposes, and lots of inspections by our people, and we've always noted that it's not heated.
Okay. Like I said, yeah, no, I can't make this statement because I haven't seen it, obviously. So, but you're right. Yeah, like I just couldn't find any notes or anything mentioning that. But that's fine.
It's good unheated space, but it's still unheated.
Okay, then you know what? I think that's the only question I have then. Thank you.
Mr. Whitburn.
I have none, thank you.
Ms. Schultz, any question?
Further to the unheated portion, so on all the properties previous, you had indicated rent of $1.75. You've given that to portion of it now, and the other one you've given $5 rent. Is that just based on the structure being new?
Well, new, but built and approved under building code for its use. So the difference is going to be if you have a building that was built earlier and then either the heating was removed or whatever, the shell will suffer because, as I was saying, the freeze thaw cycles and the moisture in the air, as well as corrosion to the deck. And if you see the pictures of this site, the interior,
Yep.
you see more of a usage of metals that have more of a higher content of non-rusting material, as well as the air systems to move the air. So that's to eliminate the moisture buildup, as well as to get the exhaust gases out. And it's got a high ceiling. And at the time, I mean, the real estate is probably worth more because if you look at also look at the picture, it was designed to accommodate the size of a metal recycling special built piece of equipment, and there's room for more. So it is a growing bit of the industry. I don't know, like all of our people in our office have been through it, and we just felt that to simply say $1.75 is not appropriate. It's just good unheated space that should have a longer. I guess I give long answers to a short. Short. Okay. Think of a remaining economic life. If you take a building built traditionally and you remove the heating, you reduce the economic life and its productivity. When you're built to a standard and you're unheated, you're going to have a good remaining economic life.
Okay. Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Just go to page 4 again, and maybe just have one more look at your heated versus unheated contention here. That duct coming down, you said it's for a filter. That does not look like intake to me. That looks like
no, that's
forced air.
The picture,
forced air duct, a grill there. That grill is not very big.
No.
If you're filtering, wouldn't you have a much bigger area you're sucking things in? Is that the filter itself there?
Well, look, there's two areas in the building that are going to suffer that they're going to be concerned about. One is at the upper the top with the buildup of moisture, and the bottom with the buildup of carbon monoxide. And the assessor's picture on page 8 shows the central exhaust system and then 4 units for bringing in outside air.
Okay, just a second. Page 8 on the
page 8.
So you got those 4 units on there, right? And there's one right in the center.
Right, and those 4 units then go into the ductwork. And I was just trying to look for my copy of the plans just to see because there's each of them has 3 cooling fans on them as to what exactly they were. And you can see the pictures. I've been in this particular building like 6-7 times. It's not heated, and that's not because they turned the switch off. It's incapable of. And I guess part of what I'm saying is an educated assumption that it's a filtration system. Would not ever mislead the board.
I'm not suggesting that you are. I'm just suggesting that you may be mistaken.
Yes, well, that is something. Now, I also, which I have not submitted we have not submitted to the board, are pictures taken from about 6 prior inspections, and it shows that the operation of diesel powered excavation equipment inside there. That's and I was I'll just show you a picture up there. I got plans of it somewhere in that pile.
Well, if you don't have anything that, you know, definitively says what those units are, let's just move on and we'll deal with it. Okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I understand that. But the last thing just to point out is that we have taken 2 assessors through it, and we have confirmed that there's no heat in this building. I have another picture. I'm looking at it. Yeah, the diffusers are all mounted across the top on either side of the equipment. And as you know, heat doesn't go down, it goes up. So we'll leave it as what it is. It's my educated guess and observations.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions. Anything in summation, Mr. Harling?
You know what? No, I think I'm good. Thank you very much.
Anything in summation, Mr. Neufeld?
Yeah, just briefly, and what we've just been talking about, whether whichever way the board feels like leaning on this, just consider our approach to it has been fairly reasonable in that we called it either really good quality unheated space or it's normal space, but you're still not going to see a rent more than $5 for a junkyard space. Thank you.
That will conclude item number 3, 550 Messier. And we have heard all of the items scheduled this morning, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much for your presentations, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Gentlemen.
Take care.
Oh, I guess I can't add anything, can I, from another picture I'm looking at?
Oh, I think we have enough information, and Mr. Neufeld make our decision. Yeah.
It's bi-level ducting. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.